something explosive is rattling the foundations of the WNBA. Aja Wilson, once the untouchable face of women's basketball, is under fire for allegedly fueling an onslaught of aggressive play against rookie superstar Caitlin Clark. For weeks, fans have watched in disbelief as the controversy spirals into something bigger than a typical sports rivalry, with rumors of harsh disciplinary actions and even possible career-ending repercussions for Wilson. There's no telling how deep this scandal might go, or whether the WNBA itself can survive the fallout. Aja Wilson was never just another player. From the moment she burst onto the scene, she commanded attention with her skill, her charisma, and her undeniable passion for the game. Fans rallied behind her, seeing in her an icon who could carry women's basketball to new heights. She picked up MVP awards, notched championships, and graced magazine covers. But beneath all the triumphs, there was a growing concern about how some elite players, particularly black athletes, weren't being celebrated as fully as they deserved. That conversation about recognition and race pervaded many corners of women's sports. While Wilson's achievements stacked up, there were whispers that outside endorsements, mainstream coverage, and top-tier sponsorships lagged behind what some felt she truly earned. No one could have guessed that these frustrations would one day intersect with the arrival of a new star named Caitlin Clark and ignite a chain of events that threatened to fracture the league. Caitlin Clark's transition from collegiate phenomenon to professional prodigy was as smooth as it was dazzling. A record breaker during her NCAA days, Clark boasted not just incredible stats, but a style of play that sparked highlight reels game after game. By the time she officially joined the WNBA, her social media following rivaled that of established veterans. Brands saw an untapped goldmine, and whispers of a multi-million-dollar shoe deal quickly turned into official announcements. The speed of Clark's rise took many by surprise. Suddenly, she was the talk of the league, featured in viral videos and teased for upcoming sneaker collaborations. Longtime fans loved the fresh energy, but a quieter chorus of critics wondered whether the extraordinary hype around Clark might overshadow others who had been building the WNBA from the ground up for years. If those critics voiced their worries diplomatically at first, that restraint wouldn't last for long. Trouble surfaced as soon as rumors of Clark's massive endorsement deals began to swirl. Notably, Aja Wilson's online posts shifted in tone from celebratory to subtly barbed. Some pointed out that Wilson never directly attacked Clark by name, but the timing of her comments on social media coincided a little too perfectly with news about Clark, tweets expressing frustration at how certain players are fast-tracked to stardom struck an uncomfortable chord. Fans on both sides read between the lines, some calling Wilson's remarks justified, others labeling them a veiled shot at the newcomer. Before long, sports talk shows picked up the narrative. Panelists debated whether the WNBA was pushing Clark as the next big thing at the expense of accomplished veterans. Themes of race, equity, and biased media coverage dominated the conversation. That tension leaped from internet threads into the real world the moment Clark took the court for her first few WNBA games. The environment felt charged, as if everyone expected a spark to light the fuse. It started innocently enough. Tough defense, hard screens, a bit of extra contact, but anyone paying attention noticed a pattern. Almost every time Clark took the ball up the floor, she encountered unusual levels of physicality. In one early season matchup, she was sent sprawling by an elbow that clearly went beyond a typical basketball play. Once the footage circulated online, social media ignited with theories that certain players, possibly under Wilson's influence, were making a point to knock Clark down a peg. Game after game, the collisions became more frequent and more blatant. A stiff arm here, a shove there, never enough for a major penalty, but just enough to raise suspicion. Fans began calling out the WNBA for turning a blind eye, accusing officials of letting the message be sent. Caitlin Clark wasn't going to waltz into the league without consequences. Amid all of this, Wilson remained firm in her public stance. She was simply highlighting the disparities in how black women athletes are treated versus white stars. She never told anyone to target Clark, she insisted, and if people were reading more into her words, that was on them. Under mounting pressure, the WNBA finally released a brief statement about maintaining sportsmanship. It was short and vague, offering little in the way of concrete steps the league might take. That only seemed to further inflame the situation. Fans loyal to Caitlin Clark said the league was ignoring a real issue. A rookie was being battered each game, seemingly with zero repercussions. On the flip side, Wilson's supporters argued that she was being scapegoated for a much broader problem, that the media and certain fan bases elevate white athletes over equally talented black ones, and that any criticism from Wilson was being twisted to paint her as the villain. These opposing viewpoints collided daily on social media, with hashtags trending and heated debates raging in comment sections. The tension was impossible to miss. Casual sports fans, mainstream media figures, and even a few former NBA players jumped in, drawn to the drama unfolding in women's basketball. Then came the talk of endorsement risks. Unnamed sources whispered that corporate sponsors were watching the controversy closely, concerned about potential PR nightmares. Brands typically select star athletes to represent their ideals: community, empowerment, equality. But now they feared being connected to a deepening scandal. Everything escalated when leaked messages began circulating online. Screenshots allegedly showed Wilson making dismissive jokes about the hype around Clark, suggesting she should learn her place before being treated like the league's new face. The authenticity of these leaks has been neither confirmed nor denied by Wilson, but it was enough to fuel conspiracy theories that she'd been orchestrating a silent campaign against Clark from the start. The sense of betrayal was palpable. People who had praised Wilson for her leadership and advocacy now began questioning her integrity. As these claims of behind-the-scenes manipulation piled up, rumors flew about how severely the WNBA might punish Wilson if the evidence proved she had incited or encouraged unsportsmanlike conduct. Some speculated that a suspension or hefty fine was inevitable, while a few more dramatic voices suggested the league might even consider contract termination, though that's almost unheard of for a star of Wilson's caliber. The stakes grew higher by the day. Every new piece of leaked information sent shockwaves through social media. Sponsors debated pulling away from Wilson, while Clark's endorsers reaffirmed their commitment to the rising rookie. The question on everyone's lips: did A'ja Wilson deliberately unleash a season of pain upon Caitlin Clark? Or is this entire scandal an overblown reaction to typical sports rivalries? Meanwhile, the silence from Caitlin Clark's camp was deafening. She continued to handle post-game interviews with measured composure, sidestepping most questions about on-court aggressiveness. Publicly, she's refused to call out Wilson or any other player directly, insisting she's focused on adapting to the professional game. To some, this dignified approach is admirable. Clark is showing she won't be rattled by attempts to intimidate her. To others, though, Clark's tight-lipped stance is making everything worse. They argue that by not openly condemning the aggression, she leaves room for speculation, allowing tabloids and social media to spin the narrative without any official pushback. Some fans want Clark to use her newfound influence to unite the league, bridging what's become a glaring and divisive rift. Yet others believe it's not a rookie's job to fix deeply rooted issues about race, endorsements, and respect that have festered in women's basketball for years. Right now, the WNBA stands at a crossroads. Will league officials hand down a game-changing suspension to A'ja Wilson, sending a clear message that incitement, however indirect, won't be tolerated? Could the league opt instead for a more diplomatic approach, urging players to unify, or will it simply wait for this to blow over, hoping that some new headline distracts the public? None of the choices are easy. It's a defining moment for the sport. Women's basketball has spent decades fighting for prominence, battling systemic issues that limit its visibility and pay. The last thing it needs is a scandal that alienates fans, discourages corporate support, and erodes trust among players. Yet, ignoring the deeper conversations about race and equity could be even more damaging in the long run. On a personal level, A'ja Wilson may be facing the toughest challenge of her career. If the allegations are validated, she risks more than a suspension. her entire legacy could be tarnished by the perception that she turned her frustration over endorsements into a grudge match against a rising rookie. Yet if the controversy is blown out of proportion, Wilson might be an unfortunate scapegoat in a league struggling to balance star power and social issues. And what of Caitlin Clark? So far, she's proven resilient. She hasn't lashed out publicly, nor has she let the rough play halt her momentum. Whether she remains silent or eventually breaks that silence, her path will shape not just her personal brand, but potentially the direction of the WNBA. If she emerges unscathed, still the golden girl of the league, some will celebrate it as a victory for women's basketball. Others might see it as one more example that the system favors a particular narrative. In the end, the entire WNBA, and by extension, all fans of women's sports, must reckon with the lessons of this scandal. If the league fails to address alleged targeting, cynicism will deepen, and if it cracks down too hard, accusations of bias or overreach could fracture the unity of the players. One thing is certain, the world is watching more intently than ever before, and the stakes have never been higher. So what do you think? Is Aja Wilson truly the architect of Clark's rough welcome to professional basketball? Or is this an overhyped drama fueled by social media and simmering resentments? Whether you side with Wilson, Clark, or remain undecided, there's no denying that the decisions made in the next few weeks will have repercussions for years to come. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're hungry for more updates on the twists and turns shaking the WNBA, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for sticking with me till the end, and trust me, this story is far from over.